founder of Martial Arts Mentors and Copyright Kids. He specializes in leadership development, instructor training, and resilience. Mark draws on personal experience overcoming chronic fatigue syndrome to inspire young leaders. He aims to develop programs that are well suited to all ages and people with many chronic diseases after he himself has attributed his recovery from chronic fatigue to martial arts and a healthy mindset, diet, and lifestyle. Please welcome Mark to the show.
Thank you, Miranda and Grace, and thank you everyone for being here. Guys, this is a great opportunity, and first and foremost, I just want to say that it's incredible to be standing up here in front of so many future leaders of tomorrow. For all of you sitting here today, there's so much to learn in school, and we all do this. We all go through our learning phases where we're under textbooks learning, but where we learn the most is when we connect to people and talk to people. And this is sort of the position I want to come to you from today. I have a story to share. Much like where you are right now, hands up, who's in year 11 and 12 here? So, everyone, perfect. So this works out really well. So backtrack a few years. I'm going to start to show my age here. But backtrack a few years, 2004, 2005 was when I was in year 11 and 12. And school for me was not very challenging. And I'm not saying that as a brag. I'm saying it to preface with what's about to come in the next part I tell you. I went to Townsville Grammar School. I was school captain. Grew up far north Queensland. School was good. Life was good. I had a lot of opportunities as I was finishing year 12 in where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. My parents had told me, I grew up in Townsville, there's a uni there. My dad was a deputy vice chancellor of the university, and I was told, if you want to go to uni, no problem, you can go here and stay at home, all good. But if you want to go away, pay for it yourself. So I was like, okay. 17, sold a few calendars over Christmas, but how do you pay moving to another city? That's going to be tough. So I thought, okay, well, I'll see what scholarships are out there. Applied. Next thing I knew, I had offers to go to university in different cities, and one of which was UNSW to study medicine. And this is during year 12. And I thought, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. Got in there, got in at JCU, and I thought, oh, well, which one do I want? And so I played them off against each other. And I said, well, if you want me to come, give me more money. And it turned out that they said, okay, and ended up getting a scholarship to come down to Sydney, study at UNSW. Life was good. It was great. I was 17 when I got to Sydney. So in Queensland back then, schooling was a year younger. So came down to Sydney. Everyone else during O Week having a great time. Me, not so much. 17 again. And everything was lining up with where it should. The plan, which I'm sure you've all thought about, was right there. It was all the steps were in place. Uni started off great. The first term of uni, smooth sailing, making friends, building connections, getting into study, getting the routine down. Should add that following up from high school, continued my training in athletics and sport. I'd represented Australia in athletics. I'd represented Queensland in tennis, and it was fun. About 6 months into that journey, I started to get sick and wasn't sure with what and why. Went to the doctor. They couldn't really work it out. It was like I had almost like a flu, but not the flu, and things were tough. I ended up finding out that it was Epstein-Barr virus or glandular fever, but it was a really rare form that wasn't showing up in blood tests. So for 3 months, I just continued to get sicker and sicker and sicker. But I was also someone who'd grown up with that internal drive to say, don't be soft, get on with it. Go to class, get on, one foot in front of the other, keep going, keep going, keep going. So I'd do that. But it got harder and harder and harder. After about 3 months, it reached a point where I remember I was living at UNSW, living on campus, 18 years old. I went to bed on a Friday night, woke up the next morning, what I thought was the next morning, hopped on the bus, went to East Gardens, And next minute I get a phone call from one of the guys who lived in the dorm across from me. And he goes, "Where are you?" And I said, "Westfield. Where are you?" And he goes, "In class." I'm like, "It's Saturday. What are you doing?" He goes, "It's Monday." I was like, "Whoops." I was like, "What just happened?" Now, I essentially lost a couple of days. Why? Because my body was so fatigued, so run down that I literally just lost time and went to bed on Friday, got up on a Monday. It was a very scary scenario. And that was the first real moment where I went, something's not just a little bit wrong. This isn't a little bit of an issue. Something's really drastically going on here. Fast forward 2 years later, and things had gotten harder. I'd continued in health status to continue to decline. And I ended up completely bedbound, unable to get out of bed, unable to do anything, gone from the heights of being able to achieve anything to having no ability to retain information. Didn't matter if I studied 100 hours a week. I could verbally tell you the answer to any question about any topic. And yet when it came to the exam with that little bit of stress, suddenly I couldn't remember the answer. It was right there. And I'd get asked by the lecturers after an exam, they'd be like, "You only just scraped through a pass on this. What's going on? Tell me the answer to this." And I'd tell them, "Tell me the answer to this, easy." And yet why is it when there's a tiny bit of stress that doesn't occur anymore? And so this ended up being a bit of a barrier. I was so sick that I couldn't get up. I remember, in the start of each day at my absolute worst, it would take 2 hours before I could move. It was like my brain was there, but it was waterlogged. It was unable to access the information. It was all there. It was just out of reach. Physically, I dropped down to 54 kilograms. For reference, I'm about 80 now. And the reason for that was that due to the nature of the illness, so chronic fatigue is not an illness that is easily identifiable. You look normal on the outside. No one would know that you have it. I still have it today. Your brain doesn't remember things as well as it should. It does go away for some people. Some people live with it for life. Your energy levels, there's different variations of it. There's people who just are a bit more fatigued, and it's sort of, imagine how you feel when you have a cold or a flu. The brain's a bit sluggish, the body's heavy and tired, but if you had to get up, you could. Well, that's me normally. That's now, every day. But when I was at my worst, well, you cannot get up. You are trapped in your own body, just laying there, looking at the white roof. And it used to take 2 hours in the morning for me to even get my thumb to move. I'd just be there trying to move, start there and say, right, if I can do that, next step will be moving the arm. And in terms of where that went, it got to a stage where you're thinking about, do I want to have a sip of water today? Because if I do that, there'll be a consequence later. Drink water, need to go to the bathroom. How do you do that when you can't get up? So there's a trade-off. Imagine living like that. This is me 2 to 3 years past where you are right now. Trapped. I was told, going from athletics at a national level, going from studying medicine to now being trapped in my own body. Where do you go? What do you do? Most people in that moment, and I have met many other people who've had chronic fatigue in their late teens and early 20s, and most of them end up moving back home. They move in with their parents, and a couple of them I still see online. They're in their late 30s, early 40s now, still living at home, still with their parents. Why? Because there's no treatment, there's no magic pill, there's no nothing for this. There is one possible thing that sometimes works. It's called graded exercise therapy, meaning start moving. So when I was told to do this, I was told, right, well, what's your activities of daily living? How much can you handle? The answer was, well, I'm starting at 0. So they said, right, well, let's get you a step counter. Let's start with 10 steps. That's your goal, 10 steps a day. Right, great. That's bathroom and back, right? That's it. So that was the starting point. And I thought, this is boring. Going from someone who can run 100 meters in 10.8 seconds to saying, right, now you've lost all this weight, life's changed dramatically, you're on track to being a doctor in Sydney, Life's ahead of you. Now everything's cut out from under you. For most people, that's a struggle, and it was a struggle. But the part that changed here was when, instead of taking just those 10 steps, I looked around and I thought, what's something I've never done? What's something I've always been interested in doing? And I thought, oh, martial arts. I organised help. I got down to martial arts and I had a go. First things first, I called the school owner and I said, here's the situation. You probably don't want someone like me in your school, picturing what martial arts was. And he said, absolutely, I'd love you to come down. We're here to serve the community. We want to help people. Come and have a go. So I thought, okay. Walked through the door. This is 18 years ago. And I threw one punch and collapsed in the middle of the floor. And the person who's running the class, she's one of my best friends and colleagues, works with me every day now. She said at that moment she was studying exercise science and dietetics at University of Sydney. And I threw that punch and she just caught me on my elbows and sat me down. And she goes, you've got chronic fatigue, don't you? I said, yeah. And she goes, I'm studying that. Can I chat to you later? Oh, okay. And I just sat there on the floor for 20 minutes, couldn't move. Why? Because that's what fatigue does. You hit a point, it was one punch, that's all I managed. And I was feeling great because I was like, wow, this is more than I've done in a year, 2 years. This is awesome. She comes along 20 minutes later and just yoink, picks me back up and goes, do it again. I did another punch. And then she goes, excellent. Now, before you go home, I'm going to teach you how to knock someone out with 2 fingers. I was like, oh, this is great. And she goes, here, this is how you can defend yourself. Takes no energy, no nothing. And she taught me this. And I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting. I went home. Now, my brother worked for McKinsey. Some of you will know what that firm is. Management consulting firm in the city. He got home and I lived with him. And he got home and he goes, how was that martial arts thing? I said, oh, yeah, it was pretty good. And he goes, what did you learn? I said, oh, lean in, my voice. Got him. He came back with me 2 days later and signed up. He was like, you are not learning a single thing I don't. So that was fun. We sort of, he was the person who would drive me there. He'd keep me going. And every couple of days I was able to go again and again and again. And the part of recovery for me was the journey and the belt system where I'd see, I started with 2 punches, but 2 days later, those 2 punches were 4 punches. 4 punches became 5 minutes of a class. And yeah, classes were 45 minutes. I used to walk in and think everyone's going to stare at you and judge you because here they are doing their own thing, their class, their training, they're going hard. And here's this guy, 19, 20 years old, 54 kilos, trying to do a punch. Like, pathetic. What are they going to think? After a while, I recognized that when I did the first 5-minute block of a class and then I had to sit on the sideline, sit on a chair, recover, wait, that was it. Everyone came over and congratulated me and said, that's huge. Well done. They didn't care. There was no judgment. Support. That's all it was. Now, think for a second where that would be if that was you. Where you are today, fast forward 2 or 3 years, life's taken out from under you. Can't move, can't talk, can't eat, can't drink. That's it. And then to start to try and claw it back through movement, through exercise, one day, one step at a time, week by week. And every time I trained, it just that little bit better. The combination of movement, of exercise, of stretching, of knowledge, of confidence, of body mechanics, of learning continued to develop. After a while, I noticed that as each belt I was achieving, it was kind of like a leveling up in terms of my own health as well, and recognizing that, wow, I'm actually getting a standard back here. A little bit longer than that, ended up 3 years down the road, got my black belt. And that was a sign for me to say, okay, I'm actually starting to get control of my life back. That moment was when I went back and said, all right, you're going to go back and finish that medical degree. Now, medicine's all or nothing. There is no part-time, it's full-time. And the minute I started to scale back, training each day and the amount of exercise I could do, the illness started to get worse again. And I was like, there is no way I'm going back to spend another 2 years laying on my back, staring at the roof, trying to start from level 0 again. Not worth it. So that's when I threw it in and said, that's that career path. While I love medicine and there's so much knowledge I've gained and I've finished the medical science components of this, I have a great amount of knowledge. It's obviously not my path. And what's my next path going to be? Well, it's at that moment that I got tapped on the shoulder and said, okay, well, what about teaching? Have you ever thought of that? And I was like, no. teaching martial arts. Okay. Gave it a go, found out it's quite enjoyable, I'm pretty good at it. And then continued to progress and develop. Every time I got that belt, I'd get healthier, fitter, stronger, the next level, the next level, the next level, and the journey continued like that. To the point now that for those who don't know me, they have no idea that I still have chronic fatigue. I work a full-time week. There's a few familiar faces in the crowd who I've taught over the years, but you wouldn't know that each night I go home and once I reach a certain point, I can't talk anymore. I can't move. I'm trapped on the couch even now, today. But that's life. It doesn't go the way you think it does. It's the exact same thing Magistrate Chisholm just said. You don't know where life's going to take you, what path it goes down. Be open to whatever life throws at you, where it goes. I thought I was going to be doing medicine, becoming a doctor, but no, life took me this way. Do I wish it had have stayed that way? No, not at all. Not at all. Be open to wherever life takes you and just enjoy the journey. Thank you.
Spectacular journey and how you overcame challenges that were out of your control. We'll once again open up the mics for Q&A. So raise your hand if you have a question.
Hi there, I'm from Sydney Secondary College. My name's Charlie. I was going to wonder, who was your mentor, if you had one, and what did you learn from them?
Great question. Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, so who was my mentor and what did I learn from them? I've had several mentors along the way in terms of the different aspects of my life. In terms of health management, was obviously the first was the team of professors at UNSW who recognized the illness and sort of got together and supported that journey. There was, from psychologists to this, and it was good because I'd already studied all the bits and pieces of the recovery journey that they'd be there. So I'd get told, okay, part of recovery from this illness was at a center called the Lifestyle Clinic at UNSW, which handles cancer rehabilitation. So chronic fatigue is exactly the same in terms of what the body goes through as post-cancer fatigue, which is if you've ever known someone to go through chemotherapy and seen the fatigue associated with that, it is identical to chronic fatigue. So you get treated in the same room and the same specialties as that. And so one of which was this amazing psychologist, and he'd sit down and say, right, we've got to talk about, the way that we change your mindset with this and this and this. And he'd be like, right, let's learn about this. And then he'd ask me the question. I'd say, I've already studied that. I know it. So I finished a 12-month program in 6 weeks for that. And it was a really good way as a mentor to look at, the health journey and the way that you can change your mindset. In terms of the physicality, the mentors that I had in recovery were really the martial arts group around me, from Grandmaster Ridvan at Australian Martial Arts, Master Hakan, Miss Sarah. These guys were all instrumental in that recovery journey and being patient, being willing to go through, what are you capable of today, and adapting to the daily limit that you might have, and knowing that daily limit isn't always the same. I always talk about it as having chronic fatigue is like walking on a tightrope blindfolded with no stick to hold on to. It's one day you can achieve this, the next day you can't, and that's okay. So that would be the two biggest areas in terms of mentors. Yeah.
Oh my God, sorry, I'm freaking out a little bit. What would you have done if you didn't have that motivation from those around you? Like, you didn't have that support to help you? Like, do you think you'd still be where you were? Would you have a different mindset? Like, would you go to room with your parents? Like, what would you do?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Thanks for that. That's the part about having people around you that are a supportive environment is learning that you shouldn't become reliant upon them to drive you. You have to have that internal drive. So that component of resilience is down to you individually and learning who you are and not being someone who's wrapped up your identity by those around you. Instead, you want to come out of that shell. And one of the best things I've learned is you're the sum of the 5 people around you that you spend the most time with. For most of you in your age, that will be, your family, are probably at least 3 of those 5, and then 1 or 2 really good friends. And that sort of forms the sum of who you are. Now, for you, where you are right now in year 11, year 12, you might be thinking, well, that's great, but how do I become the people I admire? If you look up to, the CEO of a certain company, or you're looking at this and saying, that's the industry I want to be, that's who I want to be, make them one of your 5. And you're going to say, well, why would the CEO of whatever want to be in my circle of 5? They're not. But can you learn from them? Have they written a book? Do they have a podcast? Do they have social media? Start to follow them. And when you learn from what they're doing, they can actually, through that way, become one of the 5 people that motivate you, inspire you. But you're not wrapped up in terms of saying that this is your identity, your personality. You must be the one who drives that. Don't let others limit you.
Hello, I'm Ethan from Port Street High School. So as a student, you excelled in both academics and athletics. Did you ever experience burnout, and how did you combat that?
Great question, Ethan. So interesting side note to that. Yeah, school was good. My brother was 2.5 years older than me, so 3 years ahead at school. And I remember walking into year 11 when things, year 10's good, year 11 it gets serious. I walked in, first time I walked through the door into physics in year 11, the teacher's looking at the roster and they're going, who's in class? And I went, oh, okay, this person, this person. They looked up and they said, Mark. Who's Mark? And I was like, me. And they go, are you Blake's little brother? And I was like, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's lower the expectations right now. I should preface this by saying my brother was Dux of the school and topped the state in both chemistry and physics. So I was like, sweet, but let's just put that down here and you'll be really impressed. So in terms of that, yeah, school was good. I enjoyed it. Burnout and what you can actually achieve and what you can do is limited a lot of times by the limitations you put on yourself. When you tell yourself that you're only capable, and this is where the same thing that we were just asked here comes into play. If the people who surround you tell you constantly that you're at risk of this, or you're limited by this, that you're only capable of this much, that's how much you'll be capable of. If you want to raise those limits, look at the top performing CEOs around the world. Some of them get up at 5 a.m. every day. They have these amazing ability to work out. They go to the gym, they run their companies, they motivate people, they have meetings, they raise their families, they're doing all these things. And how is it that they're capable of so much more than the normal workday that everyone else does? Well, it's because they're not limited by those around them. They're raised up by those around them. So is burnout a thing? 100% it is. 100% it is. But learn to, 1, manage your energy. So don't put everything into every activity all the time. Some things you just want to make sure that you're having enough left over to continue on to the next thing. But also, the biggest thing is remove the limits that you're putting on yourself. Okay, if those limits are limiting you from the other people around you, lift them or find other people who will lift you as well.
Sorry guys, that's going to be the last question for now.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And just as we wrap up, I want to say a big thank you to Fort Street High School, to Miranda, to Grace, and the SRC guys. Thank you so much for having us at Australian Martial Arts come out today. It is awesome to be involved in a community project like this and to be part of inspiring you and answering any questions you might have. And being part of a day like this is really special. So for us to do what we do every day, which is to impact the lives of teenagers all around the inner west, to be able to do this today in front of all of you is really special. So thank you so much. And if you ever have any questions, guys, feel free to reach out. Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you. Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you.